Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan. He's a Corgi. He's a little nervous today because we had a little phone malfunction and it fell, and he's always sure that the phone, the stand, and the cord are going to eat Corgis. No eating Corgis. And Tristan is a Corgi, and we are here for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. We are now on episode number 301. We might have to have a party at the Corgi meetup on Sunday to celebrate our many episodes of this. When I started, I never thought I'd even have 50 episodes of things to say, but we're still going. So today, I'm prompted by an experience a friend of mine recently had with her two dogs. Needing dental work, and so they were knocked out as a dog would be for surgery of any kind, or often for dentals. And she brought the dogs to my sister. But even at some other vet practices, you are able to be with your dog while he's waking up from the anesthesia. Sometimes they'll have you sit in the waiting room with the dog. Sometimes they'll let you be in another room with a couple of other dogs and their people while they're waking up. And it does seem to ease that confusion and disorientation that the dogs have after surgery and the anesthesia is wearing off, to be with their person. So more and more vets are allowing that to happen. And so what I wanted to talk about today specifically is that there are some T-touches that I have found to be particularly helpful when your dog is coming out of anesthesia. And if you have the opportunity to be with your dog, even later in the evening after he's, quote, woken up, they can still be a little disoriented and a little unbalanced and confused after surgery. So these T-touches apply anytime your dog has had any kind of surgery or gone under anesthesia for any procedure. And that's much more common than we like to think, but it does really help to do these T-touches. And I have been able to work with all three of my dogs and several of my sisters and some random dogs from the SPCA that she gets in to neuter or spay or do other surgery for from rescue organizations. So I've worked with a lot of dogs coming out of anesthesia, probably more than the average person. And these are things that any vet tech should know, as well as anyone who's bringing their own personal dog in for a procedure. So if you haven't been with us long enough to remember the first 40-something episodes that were all about T-touches and how to do them, I will do a quick little review. Of course, we all have been doing the heart hugs, where you cross your hands over your heart, imagine the face of a clock with the 6 towards your feet, and you just push that skin around a circle and a quarter, inhaling and exhaling. A T-touch is a circle and a quarter. So it's generally a circular technique, a circle and a quarter. And there's a lot of reasons why a circle and a quarter is better than 2 circles or 1 circle. In the beginning, we were doing a circle and a quarter just to get people to do 1 whole circle, but that quickly became apparent that there was a lot more going on when people were doing that than just completing the circle. And there's been lots of looking into why the circle and a quarter, and it really is significant that you do that circle and a quarter. So you imagine the clock with a 6 pointing down, and you go around all the way around the clock back to the 9. And Linda really encourages us to literally imagine the face of a clock as we're doing these circles. So we're going to be doing some lying leopard circles with our dog's ears in particular. So to do that, the part of your hand that's touching the dog, your thumb is your anchor, and just the ends of your fingers here. Your hand will be curled like a paw, but pretty flat so that you can get the whole end of your finger on your dog. And you're going to put your thumb somewhere on them. And then the middle finger is kind of doing the work, as I say. It's imagining that face of a clock under your middle finger and doing that circle and a quarter. And the rest of your fingers are just following that around. And your dog can be moving. Sometimes there's a lot of jerky movements when they're coming out of anesthesia. But this is really relaxing. And you don't want to do the circles too fast or too slow. 1 second circle seems to be pretty good, or even a 2 second circle. But when you get much slower, it tends to drop your blood pressure, which is not a good thing when you're coming out of anesthesia. So 1 second circles are best for this. And you're going to do them all around where your dog's ear meets his head. what we call the base of the ear. The triple heater meridian is there in acupuncture, and that has points for respiration, digestion, and reproduction. And unless you're a breeder, you might think, oh, reproduction, don't use that much. But if your dog has just been spayed or neutered or was recently rescued and has to go back in maybe for a dental, that is an important point for dogs. I know your little bow tie is getting in the way. So you're just going to be doing these circle and a quarters around the base of both ears. Tristan's getting tickled. And these are what we call the clouded or the lying leopards, depending on what part of your fingers are touching your dog. We're not being too specific with this today. Excuse me. And then another important thing are these ear slides. So you want to get some fingers in the ear, depending on how you're positioned with your dog, and hold it all the way to the end. There's a shock point at the end of the ear that also can help restore the body to homeostasis. So by going all the way to the tip of the ear and just doing a little snuggle on the end of the ear, you can help your dog come back to where he is from the anesthesia. We have a bump in our ear that Mommy keeps finding. And you're going to do this on both ears. And if your dog's ears go down, you're going to follow, let's pretend you're a spaniel. You're going to follow the ear downward. You're not going to pull the ear up. My dog's ears go up, so I'm following the ear up and out where he has it positioned. And these little strokes down the ear, don't snap it at the end and drop it like that. You want to hold it comfortably all the way to the end and just release it gently. And these can really help a dog when he's coming out of anesthesia. Bisky, he says, no more anesthesia for me, I hope. And FYI, if you know a person who's in the hospital, these same things can apply to them. Or yourself. You can actually do this on yourself when you're coming out of anesthesia after you've had like your gallbladder out, or even a colonoscopy when they knock you out for that. So just these touches around the ears and the ear slides. And then another one that's a really easy T-touch, but so important when your dog's coming out of anesthesia. After you do the ear slides, I like to do what we call Noah's March. But really what it is connecting all your dog's parts to the ground. So you just run your hand over the dog, bringing his feet in connection with the ground. Now, usually when they're coming out of anesthesia, they're laying on their side and they're kind of flopping their head. So make sure that you connect those feet, if they're not on the floor, to the floor by just making a bridge between the paw and your hand to the floor. But I think it's really important to do this Noah's March when they're coming out of anesthesia, because it restores their body image and lets them really feel where all their parts are in space, because that's part of the disorientation of anesthesia, is that you don't know where your parts are. And also I found from a craniosacral perspective, sometimes when they're coming out of anesthesia, their body is going through the movements of where it would have gone if it wasn't paralyzed by the anesthesia for the surgery or whatever was going on. So I find with like dentals, you might have this kind of pawing action in the front legs, or after a spay-neuter, the dog is laid upside down with his feet out to the sides to make it easier to do the spay-neuter, but their body still wants to curl in. So you may find him curling up as he's coming out of the anesthesia, and the body memory is still there. So I think the Noah's March is really important, and the ear work, because of those acupuncture points, and also because of its connections to the brain through the craniosacral system. We've got the tentorium, which is the horizontal membrane in the brain. Remember, there's a horizontal one and a vertical one. This one's the tentorium. The vertical one is the falx. And if we are working with the ears, we're stretching the tentorium, and in the middle of that is the pituitary gland, which is important for regulation in the body. So affecting that with the ear slides can, again, bring that dog back into a normal balance where he was before he had the anesthesia. Right, Tris? And like I said, if you ask the vet if you can come and be with your dog when he's waking up, many vets are open to this now. If they have room in the practice to put you in a room with your dog when they're waking up, they are happy to do it. And if your dog has a tail, include that tail in the nose march. If your dog, like mine, doesn't have a tail, go to where the tail would be if it were still attached. And just doing these little T-touches on the ears can make such a big difference when your dog's coming out of anesthesia. Even if it is 6 hours later when he's already home with you. This can really help with the nausea, for instance, because this is targeting part of the triple heater meridian for digestion. There is some nausea after anesthesia, and this can help restore that balance. What do you think, Tris? He says, oh, it's good. And this ear work, by the way, because of the nausea component and also the calming component, can be really helpful if you're traveling with a dog who gets car sick or has panic attacks in the car. And we'll come back to this ear work again when we talk about noise sensitivity and thunder and lightning. You can also take a hold of the whole ear and make some circles with it. Biscuit says, oh, that feels pretty good. There you go, Biscuit. So those are a couple of things that you can do with your pet's ears and doing the Noah's March over his body to help him wake up out of anesthesia. When I coughed, the parrot coughed. That's funny. I'm coughing because I just got so much congestion all the time these days, and I don't think it's allergies. I'm going to candle my ears today, and I think that will solve my problem. And what that is, maybe we'll do a Facebook Live on it, is it's a way to get the wax and the congestion out of your ears, and that can help with your sleeping and your sinuses. And it's always a good thing, kind of refresh yourself in the spring to do your candling. So that's a look today at some T-touches you can do with your dog when he's waking up out of anesthesia. This also applies to your cat or yourself or your friend if you know anybody who's had to go in and get some surgery done of any kind, or a colonoscopy, or if your dog's having a dental or a neutering, or if you volunteer at a shelter and you're there when some dogs are coming back from the vet for the spay-neuter. You can still do these same T-touches, even if it's hours or even the next day later. It can be really useful. So thanks for joining us today for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. We'll be back tomorrow closer to 9:30. I get to go see some horses in the afternoon. It's that time of year when people start riding again in New England. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Everybody have a great day. It's cloudy here today, but not raining, so that's a good thing. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.